And everyone, happy Monday. Happy November as well too. So we're rolling right along in this year. I want to call the meeting to order for the Citizens Advisory Committees. We have almost a full house tonight. Great to see so many seats filled. It's always a pleasure. So yeah, let's call the meeting to order. It's Caroline.
Aaron Gill,
Present.
Frank Kinsella,
Here.
Robert Sippel. Not present. Allison Falwell.
Here.
Lauren Lewis,
Present.
Raj Banat,
Here.
Justin Fields,
Here.
Ronnie Wong Bissett. Not present. Dan Kenny,
Here.
Mara Burton,
Here.
Edward Von Runnon,
Here.
Joe Henwood,
Here.
Beth Bricksdale,
Here.
Mary Patterson, not present. We have a quorum.
Wonderful, thank you. I'll now move on to any public comments.
There are none.
One, okay. It was a pleasure last time. We had someone in the audience. That was so nice. All right, well, then we'll move on to the approval of minutes from our September 22nd, 2025 meeting. Do I have a motion?
No more. Second.
Thank you.
Okay, motion by Dan Kenny and second by Justin Fields. Aaron Gill,
Aye.
Frank Kinsella,
Aye.
Allison Falwell.
Aye.
Lauren Lewis,
Aye.
Raj Banat,
Aye.
Justin Fields,
Aye.
Dan Kenny,
Aye.
Mara Burton,
Aye.
Ed Von Runnon,
Here. Aye.
Joe Henwood,
Aye.
Beth Bricksdale.
Aye.
Did I get everyone? The motion passes.
Thank you. I think we might need another microphone here. I see we have some people that are sharing. I don't know if you guys are okay sharing, Frank and Justin.
Nobody's gonna show up there.
Yeah. I'm gonna make sure everyone is that. Thank you. All right, so now we'll move on to an opening report. First, I want to say it's always such a pleasure to work with staff. So thank you, Mark and Caroline, for receiving my emails and offering support as well too. I just want to say good evening and thank you everyone for coming today. I know we're all giving our time as volunteers, so it's good to see so many people in these seats and then staff as well too. Thank you for staying late and working late to be here to present to us today. We do have a wonderful agenda, so I'm really excited to see what staff has put together. The agenda definitely reflects the time and relevant work that is happening here at OSA, and so it's just wonderful to see that presented to us. So thank you. And again, to our CAC board members, your participation really does help shape these evenings and really is important for staff to have that feedback on the initiative. So thank you as well too. So we will begin this evening with a presentation on being an Open Space Authority ambassador. So I'm excited for that. This is just my opening remarks. I'm not calling you up. I'm totally just reading my list. But thank you. I'm glad that my teacher voice is still working here with this group. So thanks, Charlotte. So that will actually be led by Charlotte Graham, and she'll be highlighting the role that ambassadors play here in strengthening our community and connection to the outreach as well too. Then we'll hear from Anna, and I'm sorry if I am not pronouncing your last name right, so I'm going to give it my best attempt here. Regalando? Oh yes, okay, so Anna Regalando on the Agricultural State Strategic Plan Kickoff. It's talking about land stewardships and what they're doing here in the community, and also just want to make sure that I am including and also how we engage broadly within the community as well, broadly within stewardship projects as well too. So excited to hear about that presentation. And then lastly, is something that is really near and dear to my heart, is the presentation that we will receive from Andres Campuzano and Elizabeth Loreto. Yes, yay. And names are very important to me, so please, if I'm not getting them right, please do correct me. And we're going to be hearing about the American with Disabilities Act and the progress report and looking ahead. So I do have a few comments with that. I have been seeing some social posts from No Worries Amigo. I did see that they were out in the parks using All Access Trail. It was really exciting to see so many people enjoying that trail. So just want to say thank you to staff for providing that. And looking forward to having the agenda today or this evening. So thank you all. I'm looking forward to receiving the reports. That's all I have. Thank you. All right, so now Charlotte. We will receive a presentation on being an Open Space Authority Ambassador for Charlotte Graham, so thank you.
Thank you, Ivy. Good evening, everyone. I'm Charlotte Graham, and I'm the Public Information Manager here at the Open Space Authority, and I'm joined by Anna Marie Poulin, our Multimedia Communications Specialist. And we're going to talk about brand ambassadorship tonight. And this is a presentation that originally we gave to our staff, and it was a much longer format, and we've kind of condensed it down for you tonight. We know we have kind of a busy agenda. We've got a packed agenda, so we're going to try to move through things kind of quickly. But as CAC members and ambassadors for our brand, you definitely play a unique role in connecting people in the community to the Open Space Authority. So actually, I'm going to pass it over to Anna Marie to get us started.
All right. Good evening, Citizens Advisory Committee. So we're just going to jump right into it. When people think of a brand, they usually think about logos, color palettes, right? And those visual elements, logos, color palettes, typography, designs, they are really important to any brand and they make us recognizable. But a strong brand doesn't just tell people who we are, it really makes them feel something. Think of any brand that and it probably goes beyond their logo, right? So some other things that define our brand and really any brand is our mission, values, and purpose, why we do the work that we do and what that work is. The strategy, and not just strategy behind, our communications, but the strategy behind our projects and the way we reach people. Advertising, of course, is a big part of the brand and how we do that. And also our value proposition. And that's a term that usually, is associated with for-profit industries, but there are very tangible things that we provide that benefit the communities we serve. For example, events or public open space preserves or just natural infrastructure. So people want that from us and we provide it for them. So today we're really focusing on all of you and how we all fit into this broader picture of our brand, right? To be a brand ambassador, we're all part of it. Together, we're actively, continuously shaping the agency's identity, reputation, and trust that our partners and our jurisdiction associates with the Open Space Authority. Part of that too, and this is part of the reason we're here today, has to do with consistency, right? How are all of us working together cohesively to create this unified public image that's really building trust and goodwill and recognition over time of the agency? So that's a brand. Really quick recap of what a brand is in the fuller sense. What is a brand ambassador? So really, it's the face and voice of the agency. Brand ambassadors humanize an organization. We can expand reach with brand ambassadors because they're reaching people in all these different ways and avenues. And so what makes a good brand ambassador? So someone that's passionate about the agency, the mission, the work, someone that's knowledgeable about the agency. So I think for me, usually a quick rule of thumb is if someone came up to you and said, what is the Open Space Authority? What does the Open Space Authority do? Would you be able to answer them in a few quick sentences? And that's usually what we mean by knowledgeable. They have enough understanding to give someone a really quick elevator pitch. Some of that also can involve an elevator pitch on what you're passionate about. And that, again, just continues to humanize the agency. And again, not only communicate about the agency, but in a positive way. And then, of course, able to build positive relationships with partners and the public. It's really essential because it, again, fosters that trust, that recognition, that understanding of who the Open Space Authority is and what we do. So who are our brand ambassadors? Kind of all of us here in this room, right? It's staff, it's CAC members, you all, it's the board, it's volunteers as well. We also included content creators, and these are mostly people on social media who we work with to, again, collaborate with. And so in that way, by working with us and being associated with us, they are also ambassadors of our brand. And all of us really bring different things to the table. For the most part, staff are going to interact differently with the public than maybe you all would. Or one type of volunteer versus another type of volunteer. So, like I said, we all bring different things to the table. So it's all really important that we're working together to really, again, be this face of the agency, or these many faces of the agency. As a quick reminder of our agency values, as an agency, and staff developed this a few years ago, we are accessible, collaborative, accountable, respectful, inclusive, and empowered. And remembering these values, and you can always contact any of us on communications if you need a reminder. They're also found on our website. But remembering these values as brand ambassadors is really important because these values are really the foundation of our agency's identity and reputation. It's something we can always return to when we're thinking about, again, how we're representing the agency out in the world. And these also now relate to our agency voice. So our agency's voice is really what sets us apart and gives us a unique tone, personality, and style that represents the agency in all of our communications. So while this is no hard rule, the three that we've identified are professional, knowledgeable, and friendly. Again, ideally, also these voices incorporate the values from the previous slide. Again, these are the top three that we've identified to kind of help guide us how we speak across all communications, right? Not just, of course, in public, but also how we speak in our emails, in social media, on the website, really encapsulating this, this one centralized voice. What's interesting, and I think what's good about this kind of voice, is that it can really adapt to fit the unique needs of different audiences, of different situations. Because no matter what the audience is, we can at least always return to being professional, knowledgeable, and friendly. When we were talking to our staff about this, something that we wanted to remind them too is that professional doesn't need to mean hyper formal or like super buttoned up. It really, we can be casual and we can be fun and we can be friendly too, but really returning to this sense of like, yeah, remembering who we're communicating with and how we're doing that and staying professional in that sense. With knowledgeable too, the other word we like to use is just educational. And again, this is something that we were talking to staff about, that knowledgeable does not mean you know every single detail of anything. No one does. It doesn't mean you know the exact everything in the agency's history or the acres in this preserve versus that preserve. But it's really being resourceful and knowing how to provide accurate information. That's really what's key. And to go now, that's kind of an overview of our agency's brand ambassadors. I'm going to hand it over back to Charlotte to go a little deeper.
Thank you, Anna Marie. So there are also some things that we kind of typically ask folks to avoid as ambassadors for the Open Space Authority. And I'm actually really glad to say that we haven't experienced a lot of issues with this, but I'll go over them anyway. And some of this may be a little more applicable to staff members, but typically we would ask that our brand ambassadors refrain from sharing photos or content that does not align with our mission-driven messaging. So kind of specifically platforms where you would identify yourself as a representative of the Open Space Authority. So for most people, that's social media sites like LinkedIn, but there are other platforms out there where you can, list affiliations. Also asking ambassadors that are wearing our branding out in the world to please remember that, wearing our logo basically signals a connection to our agency. And then also just asking folks to please coordinate directly with me, with our team on things like media interviews. So anytime you're kind of officially representing the agency, with a reporter, public speaking at an event, things along those lines. It's really great for us to coordinate because it helps us help you. Always happy to provide things like speaking points. And again, it really helps with providing consistency and accuracy in our messaging. And it also just makes sure that as staff, we're prepared to respond effectively as well to public inquiries, things like that, or media. So on the screen, we have our key themes and messaging. So these are things that you'll find in our content that we, typically come back to. I don't think we're going to go through all of them right now. This slide deck is definitely going to be available after the meeting, but as Anna Marie pointed out, consistency in our words helps build trust. So when everyone is sharing the same core messaging, our audience are hearing this clear, unified story. And that's the kind of consistency that really helps strengthen our brand, our credibility, and it reinforces our mission. So we have this great resource available for our messaging. It's our Zigzag Impact brochure. And speaking of which, we have a ton of resources available for everybody. We have things digitally, we have things printed. There's also us, all the staff members here at the Open Space Authority. We are very knowledgeable about our work. So if you have questions about work or projects, definitely encourage you to reach out to us. Also want to give a shout out to our amazing volunteer team. They have some great trainings coming up January and February. I think they're called interpretive host trainings, but if you're looking to get more involved in public outreach, those are a great opportunity to practice the messaging, see what an outreach booth looks like, and kind of just get comfortable in that ambassador role. And then, of course, if there's something in particular you're looking for, we would love to hear from you. So there are many ways to engage, and one of the easiest ways to amplify our mission is just a simple share on social media. It can help us reach hundreds of people and spark new connections. Our blog is also a little kind of peek behind the curtain at times, and that's a really great way to that we spotlight some of our unsung heroes. So if you have ideas for content, blogs, articles, we'd love to hear from you, but even just sharing those things, sharing our newsletter, that helps us reach more people. So that's a great way to for people to get a little bit deeper into our work. Earlier this year, Mara published her own nature perspective on our blog. That was really fun, and we paired that with a video out at Maianiakma. So if you're interested in being a media spokesperson or being featured in our blogs in some way, let me know. We're always looking for different ways to feature our CAC. And again, highly recommend getting in touch with the outreach team, or our volunteer team, I should say, and doing outreach events if you can. It's a really fun opportunity to get face-to-face with people. It's just really energizing. And a great way to, just share out all the content and the things that you love about nature and the things you love about the Open Space Authority. Also sharing with us the types of content you like. If you're seeing stuff on social media or articles that you're really connecting with, let us know. We loved getting inspiration from others. We always put our own, twist on it. We always have our own messaging, but it's great to see what inspires you too. And just putting a plug in for this nice and early, we are partnering with the Silicon Valley Youth Climate Action team to host a youth video contest, and we will be looking for judges to watch those videos. So if that's of interest to you, please let us know. We'll send more information about that via email. But yeah, there's a ton of different ways to engage. Anna Marie and I are always happy to meet with you outside of these meetings to discuss ideas and brainstorm. We just love hearing from you. It excites us. And yeah, I love this slide because I think it actually really captures the spirit of our agency. We know that being a brand ambassador is so much more than just the words that we say. It's our actions, it's the relationships that we're building, it's the care that we show for this work every day and coming to these meetings. Thank you. And I would say each of you embodies that in a very unique way. So many different ways to be a brand ambassador. All of you, all of our awesome staff, board, volunteers, everybody's just giving so much heart, so much energy, so much passion to this work. And it makes our mission very real and very relatable to the communities that we serve. So thank you. Thank you for being here tonight, for continuing to be a positive brand ambassador for the Open Space Authority. Before we wrap up, though, I would like to invite Mark to come up to share a few words just about, or actually you could stay there if you want to, Mark, about the unique role that you as CAC members have in upcoming opportunities to educate the public about our agency, specifically regarding a funding measure.
Hi, everybody. So yeah, thanks for inviting me up and thanks for the great presentation about being ambassadors. And it's something that y'all are so good at anyway. Really great to have this discussion and opportunity to get in a little bit deeper with it. So in a previous CAC meeting, I think you're all aware, there is currently a signature gathering effort underway for a funding measure. It's being run by a private group, so we have nothing to do with that. But it is just good to be aware that if you're out there and getting questions from members of the public about, hey, this petition that is out there for signature, or I heard there's going to be a funding measure. I mean, you are officials of the Open Space Authority, so you're treated a little bit differently than other volunteers. We can't restrict your First Amendment rights, but we do ask that if you're talking about the funding measure, other than just answering an objective question, that you do so without logo branding, not here in a public meeting or on our premises for the Open Space Authority. And then you make clear you're doing it on your own behalf. If you want to advocate or say something that's your personal opinion. So, but otherwise, if you're just answering a question from a member of the public about the signature gathering, you can say, oh yeah, I understand that a private group is collecting signatures. I understand it's to benefit the Open Space Authority, but it's really out of our hands. I think that's a pretty good response. And then just use that as a pivot to start talking about all the great things that the Open Space Authority does that you really care about. And so, turn it around that way and talk, provide a really positive message. So it's especially important that we don't come out and talk about the signature gathering effort, initiate that conversation right now because it is a private effort. Once our understanding of the process is once the signatures have been gathered, that they would turn those in to Caroline as clerk of the board, and then Caroline would count the signatures and turn them over to the registrar of voters for validation. So at that point, it's in our hands. And so there's a little bit more freedom to talk about it as a funding measure that could potentially be on the ballot for the Open Space Authority. But until then, it's just safer to kind of stay away from it. I think that's consistent with what we've said before. So just wanted to provide that again. And if you have any questions about it, I mean, you can ask now, but if you think of questions later, feel free to come by and ask me too. Through the chair, we're not really certain how long it's going to take, except that once the notification that they're going to be gathering signatures has been filed, they have 180 days to file those, so half a year. I don't know, Caroline, if you have further information about the date limitations on the signature gathering. Yeah, okay. Yeah. All right, thanks. Thank you.
And that wraps it up. And just sort of throwing out there, if you can think of other communications resources you'd like to see in the future, please do let us know. We're always available. Again, email, phone, set up a meeting. We are here for you. So thank you.
I believe Edward has a question or comment.
Just got a question for Charlotte or Mark about the signature gathering. I haven't seen any activity there. Can anybody shed any light on where that might be occurring?
So, and again, it's not our effort, so don't really know where they're gathering the signatures, except it's gotta be within our jurisdiction. So we've heard there, some, reports that people have seen them at, shopping centers, grocery stores, things like that. We usually see people gathering signatures like that.
I think I'll reach out to Ken Yeager since he's one of the organizers of that, and has a public email address, and see what's going on, get more information there.
Okay.
Hello, Ed. I personally have seen them and have signed it at the Walmart on Amazon Expressway. And there were other measures that they were trying to get signatures for, as well as the one that we was just spoken about, and it was there for sure. And it was there even last weekend.
Good to know. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? I have one myself. I just want to say thank you to the staff for this presentation. Charlotte, Emery, it's always a pleasure to work with you. I do have some good ideas though about some brand ambassadorship and content creation, and maybe ways to use the public who are already using the preserves, who already take great photos and have nice clips and reels. There might be some really great way to collaborate as well too. So I'd be happy to set up time offline, because we want to keep this one short tonight. But offline to just share some ideas that I have. I jotted them down.
Wonderful.
So I'd be happy to connect with you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any public comments?
There are none.
Well, then we're moving right along, so. Great, awesome. Now we're going to have the presentation on agricultural strategic plan kickoff.
Thank you. Exciting. Good evening, Citizens Advisory Committee. My name is Ana Regalado, Agricultural Specialist for the Open Space Authority. I'm here to present on the Agricultural Strategic Plan Kickoff. This is a presentation that we've also done with the Board of Directors, and so now bringing it to you to get your input and feedback. So the recommendation today is just to, provide your input and feedback and any thoughts you might have on the agricultural strategic plan process. And as a note, this work is very timely, not only for the organization, but also in general. There's been a lot of movement and interest in the agricultural world in our region to continue supporting farmers and investing in their operations in ways that we might be able to support them. One that you might be aware of that is happening within our county is the rural zoning amendments being led by the planning department. And so that's apart from this work, but it is something that, helps inform our work, and we're keeping a close eye on as it's developing. And we're, following that directly as stakeholders. And tonight I want to talk to you about the work that we are specifically doing or hoping to do throughout this process to support agricultural producers. Yeah. So just to start off with a bit of context, what is the Agricultural Strategic Plan and why are we writing one? So the plan is meant to be a guiding document for the authority's agricultural mission and work, right? We've been engaged in a lot of work around the agricultural community and in preserving agricultural land in the past. And now we're ready to step into this next phase as part of my work to figure out how do we step that up a level and continue to invest in the agricultural community beyond just protecting agricultural land, right? We've done a great job in that. And now how do we take that a step further? And the point of it is to formalize how the authority works in agriculture to support farmers and ranchers towards the goal of agricultural sustainability, whether that be economic, environmental, and amongst a community of organizations and offices that are also doing this work to support. It takes a village in many cases, especially here. And so we want to make sure that the work that we are doing is supportive and not duplicative of what other organizations might be undertaking as well. Exciting. So just to go over very quickly some of the main goals of the agricultural strategic plan process. Here are 5 that I've pulled out. We have other objectives that really get into the nitty-gritty underneath all of these, but just as a high level. The first one is to, again, define our agricultural niche, and to create a long-term vision and goals that the authority has for how we engage in agricultural work in our communities. As part of this, we want to build a stakeholder group to inform the plan and work, and this includes both internal stakeholders, staff, board of directors, citizens advisory committee, but also external stakeholders, right? Folks that might not be directly affiliated with the authority, such as farmers and ranchers and concerned community members that are also invested in this work. One of the ultimate goals being to support farms and ranches and within our jurisdiction, right? Not just those that are on our protected agricultural lands, but also how can we support the overall community of farmers and producers that exist in our region. Along that same line, we want to build regional partnerships and alignment with other offices, with other organizations that are supporting this work, right? Whether that be cooperative extension, whether that is folks within the county, like our agricultural liaison, or others that are, have been doing this work and hopefully be able to partner with them to uplift that as well. And the last one being to create a North Star for the agricultural program to guide staff, to be able to inform the work that I do, the work that the authority continues to do, and to give us really a, direction to go in and to follow. Some of the topics that we'll be exploring in this process, this is not an exhaustive list, but just to start, we want to really understand what the challenges that farmers and ranchers in the area face are, and what are the potential solutions to those that the authority can implement. We also want to look at what opportunities for partnership and collaboration exist with other agricultural organizations and agencies. And we want to build equitable and accessible pathways for land access for farmers and ranchers on the authority lands that we currently have, as well as creating long-term goals for sustainable agriculture on authority lands that go beyond the strategic plan, right? So doing that really big picture visionary thinking of what do we see happening in this valley in 10, 20, 30 years, and how can this plan help us get there within the next 5? Just to be a little bit more specific about this project. And among that, many more, right? Agriculture is incredibly diverse. The topics and issues that touch them are as well. And so how can we, bring that into the fold or create a process for addressing those things as we move through this work? A bit of a very quick project timeline overview. So in October of 2025, which was last month, we did our initial partner engagement and also presentation to the board. This happened in the form of, gathering a lot of representatives and sort of thought partners in this work from other organizations here in this room. And we had a really great conversation and asked the question of, what should the authority really focus on in this work? And where could the authority shine in agricultural protection and supports? Now, as we're moving into this phase in November, we're presenting to the CAC, to you all, to get your feedback. But also we've begun the plan research and drafting, right? The physical writing of the plan, and that work will carry through February 2026 with ongoing meetings with stakeholders, both internally and externally, to really gain feedback as we're creating that process, as we're creating that document. In March of 2026, we hope to have a draft that we're able to share out for stakeholder input, that we'll also share out with the board and CAC. And in April, we'll come back to you to ask, what did you think of that draft, and really get your feedback on that document. Take all of those thoughts and comments back and refine the plan in May of 2026. And then in June, present it to the board for final approval and adoption as part of, the work that we do as staff. And that was a lot of information that I threw at you very quickly. So through the chair, the question that I have for you all today is there anything in particular that you want to make sure we address in this plan, or anything that you want to make sure to uplift from either the topics that I previously stated or others? I'm also happy to take questions at this time about this process and plan.
My question. I'm sorry, Aaron.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you for the presentation. It's quite the challenge. I think what I'm seeing now with the zoning, the rural ag areas and where we're at today was something we tried to go ahead and address in 2016, 2017, 2018 with the Santa Clara Valley Agricultural Preservation Plan. So I think that really ties in a lot of what your plan should incorporate. And that would make it a lot easier to bring it forward and be encompassing to what is really important to the ag community. What I'm seeing out of, the county itself is a misunderstanding or not a good understanding of what agriculture is, and they're trying to grasp out there for what's happening in these parcels and properties, which is pretty much a movement away from the ag zoning, destruction of ag properties by forces that are, not being contained. So I think that going back to that 2018, which was the Open Space Authority, put a lot of effort into that, as well as the county, and there was a good panel discussion, of which, I was a small part with many other people in there. So I would recommend reviewing that heavily. And if there are 3 areas that you thought that was into that would give you a good focus as to what should be done. As being part of that process, it surprised me that the county did not use that document at all. And that we're back at square one again. So it'd be nice to resurrect that and bring that forward.
Yeah, definitely. So this process that we're partaking here, I think, is really a building off and a jumping off point from that initial agricultural strategic plan. That plan, in conjunction with the county, was really sort of, jurisdiction and regional, facing. And now we're going to be able to take parts of that and really include it into the strategic plan for our work internally and how we move forward. I read through it regularly. I have a copy here. There are other copies. If some of you haven't gotten a chance to read it, I highly recommend you do. It is incredibly informative and a lot of work was put into it. And I'm glad that I have it to inform this work and to really continue to build off of. Because I think it's important. A lot of the things written in here are critical, and how do we continue to uplift them and include them throughout this process and have this strategic plan almost be an update to, or progress so far and into the future of what has been done since the adoption and creation of the agricultural plan for the valley. Yeah, thank you.
Great, Allison, and then we'll go on to Frank.
I think you just answered one of my questions, which is how are you looking at other organizations' strategic plans and identifying where there are synergies and where there might be gaps that OSA is appropriate to fill? So that was helpful. You talked about the phase that you're in or just finishing in terms of stakeholder engagement. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what that means and what that looks like.
Yeah, so the initial stakeholder engagement that we just completed was with our partners in this work. So it was with folks such as the, County Agriculture Liaison, Julie Morris, folks from Kitchen Table Advisors, and, the Cooperative Extension, which are both offices separate from the authority that work in supporting agriculture. And so it was really just getting that brain trust in the room and saying, hey, we're all doing this work in this region, and how can we get together and sort of do some of that work, identify what might be some of the opportunities for OSA and what are some of the gaps that exist that we could also help support. And that was the first part of this. I think the most exciting part of this work for me is that the stakeholder engagement is continuous. As we enter into December and January, we'll be setting up time for individual farmers and folks that are concerned to come and reach out and to set up time for either a call or for me to go out to their farm to really understand and learn more about what, these practices look like on the ground and how we might be able to build a support system that is informed by their work. And that's, through December and January, which is, as we all know, farmers never take a day off. It's always busy season, but hopefully a little bit of a calmer season for them to be able to engage in this work as we're entering into winter. And so that looks like one-on-one meetings. It looks like me attending community meetings such as the South County Farms Association meeting and presenting out, Santa Clara County Farm Bureau and presenting to them, and others like those, so that we can, meet them in their space as well and bring our work. So as, be able to provide as much access to this work and to share their information as possible. Yeah, of course.
Great, Frank, and then I have two.
Well, thank you. My question was gonna be the same. Can you elaborate on the partnership with the people that you identified?
Mhm.
so far that you could be working with, and that was gonna be my question, but you elaborated already mostly, so thank you.
Yeah, of course. And then maybe to build off of that a little bit more, right? With some of the particular partners in this work, we have standing meetings or we regularly meet and continue to work on this. I have one tomorrow with some of these key folks that are doing this work. And so just continuing to bring this work into those sort of collaborative spaces is something that we'll be hoping to do, not just throughout this process, but also afterwards, right? Part of building a stakeholder group is to help inform this, in year 1, year 3, year 5, and kind of keep revisiting it, and not just have it be a document that, isn't really dynamic or doing as much as it could. Yeah, of course.
I just wanted to check,
Yes.
and through the chair, it's farmers and ranchers you're gonna be reaching out to have those inputs, right, like it says on your slides.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So farmers and ranchers, and also, right, like just other folks in the community that are doing this work in this, in this space, to be, again, not duplicative of the work, but supportive and collaborative. If someone else is already doing technical assistance for farmers, we don't necessarily want to repeat that. And it's part of engaging in those conversations to make sure that, if it is needed, we support it. And if not, that we're supportive of their work in doing this. And where can we sort of fill the other gaps so that we're efficient with our capacities, our resources, and our time as well. Yeah.
Thanks, Anna. So my comments were, I heard you say that you will, maybe have Zoom meetings or something kind of, but I would say go to them,
Yeah.
if at all possible. Even if you are trying to ask questions as they're working, you can maybe get a good feel for what it is that they need. And as someone who works with many stakeholder groups, I always want to ask the question, who's missing from this conversation? So I would also offer that for you as well too. It's always good to think about, what other opinions, what other visions are not in this room right now, so we can make sure that it's very collaborative efforts. So those were basically my big 2 questions: is go to people, see what it is, see what they're working with, see the land, see the whatever, just see it for your own eyes. And then always think about who's missing from that conversation.
Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate that last thought of like asking that question sort of explicitly and intentionally of who else do we need to talk to, who is missing. That's very helpful.
To the chair, Aaron Aber, Natural Resource Manager. One thing I'll add that, just to get a little bit about the sort of why now, why are we doing this ag strategic plan? Other Aaron makes a great point that, the county's ag plan is really good. And if you were going to read one thing, you want to learn more about ag in the county, I think that's where I'd start. Like Anna mentioned, we've got copies available. One of the things that's changed since that time, besides a pandemic, that brought up a lot of things about the food system and food sovereignty and food security for a lot of different communities. So that's an evolution, and sort of maybe the importance of local food has maybe grown a little bit in public consciousness, I'd like to think. The other thing that I would highlight sort of in that period of time that gets us thinking a little bit about our own work and our own role in sort of the collective agricultural work is that, we've been blessed with owning more and more agricultural land. And I think sort of with that, and each year we pick up a parcel or two, sometimes they're easements, sometimes they're fee. What do we want to do with those lands? I think we have great examples like at our Pajaro River Agricultural Preserve in the South County, where we've done a lot of great work with the farmer, improving habitat on the property. It's an awesome showcase project, but it's kind of like we did it because it's the right thing to do, not because we really have a specific plan or it's called out in the county ag plan. So I think just thinking about how we manage our own lands and to what end, right? Is it just because it's sustainable ag, or because it helps other farmers, or because it reaches school children, all sorts of possibilities in that space. So I'm hopeful, I'll say at the great meeting that Anna organized with the sort of food system folks who help farmers in different capacity, a lot of different ideas. I wouldn't say there was any one thing that like emerged, like that's the one thing we have to do, but a lot of great energy around it. And it's that kind of process that we're looking to build off of. So to Aaron's point, there's a lot of stuff that I think we want to grab from the existing ag plan and say, that's our role, that's the county's role, that's UC Cooperative Extension, that's Farm Bureau, et cetera, et cetera. But what's our kind of unique niche in this space? And the other thing I'll say that the CAC might not appreciate, but over the last 3 or 4 years or so, the board of directors here has really said kind of at every board retreat that I've been to, we're really interested in this ag thing. And it wasn't until we hired Anna about a year ago that we had a dedicated position to that. So this is a little bit in response to sort of board interest in agriculture, even if like what that means, like, is it more investment in ag? Is it more, we're kind of trying to meet that request from the board. And this strategic plan really, like Anna mentioned, is a way that staff and board can get aligned on what that means. Is this a big pivot where this part of our mission grows a lot, or is it just a little bit of a change? So it starts with you guys' input, it starts with community input, but that's kind of the background of this. So hopefully, by the end of the process, it means we're going to do this more in ag, or we're going to focus on this because the county's not doing it, or whatever the case may be. So we're just trying to find ourselves a little bit before we hopefully increase the pace and scale of agricultural protection.
I did have a go back to that. I know that you all took the ag tour to the Three Feathers Farm, and unfortunately I couldn't attend that, but I have started following them on their social medias. So I think it is really nice that you are helping to expand our knowledge of what's out there, whether it be in person or, online. So thank you for that as well too. So I would say keep doing that. I think those kinds of things do really good, because even if we can't be there, we can still do our own research and then make our own connections too. Any other comment, Aaron?
If I could, maybe, Anna, if we could go ahead and address in the future CAC meeting what the board is looking for in agriculture. I don't know what the scope is of the board's understanding of agriculture. It's obviously very broad, and I don't know what, with what the holdings are of OSA. I'm not quite sure whether that overlap is between wildlife corridors and ag and how that all works out. But I think that's important to go ahead and address, to see how this all mixes together. And obviously, there's a lot of variables in agriculture and how it survives and the sustainability of it. So if there's a point in the future where we can talk about what the board understands agriculture to be, what their preferences of what agriculture should be, and that encompasses everything from, from the small nest box, application to production ags, which might be 4,500 acres or 5,500 acres of products. So if that could be brought forward, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, pitch to
Through the chair. A great question, Aaron. I think that's a good recommendation. And, my sense from different board members, just based on what they've said at our sort of annual strategic planning retreats, is a wide variety of interest. Some of them, it's a family story, like that they grew up on a farm, or their grandfather was a farmer, or something kind of in that space. Other people are very interested in sort of climate smart agricultural. So I think it runs the gamut as far as I know, and I think, what we can do in response to your request is maybe Anna's going to get into the details in this sort of writing phase of the project and really put some substance to it. And, I think ultimately we do kind of want to go back to the board with like, what are your priorities in the space? Because there's a lot of wonderful things we could do, but really what do we want to focus on? Is it that historically that's been acquisition and policy work that Mark and his team have led? But now we're getting into stewardship, looking at food hubs, we're doing all sorts of stuff. We got a big conservation grazing program that Justin can speak to. So there's all these different dimensions to our work. So I think they don't know right now, but I mean, part of staff's job, I think, is giving them more specifics, exposing them to tours. I think the work you've done with us to set up those tours has been really welcome, because there's nothing like seeing it. So I think more of that. I think it's a question for the board, but Anna and Mark and I can sit down and talk about, future board engagement, but we are planning to go back to that springtime, as she showed on her slides, and hopefully with more detail that we can kind of respond to.
Excellent.
Are there any other comments? Well, thank you so much, Anna. That was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you. And any other questions, please feel free to email me or reach out.
Are there any public comments? So we're gonna move along to receive a presentation on the American with Disabilities Act. This will be from Andres Campuzano and Elizabeth Loretta. Thank you.
Good evening, CAC members. Elizabeth Loretto, Administrative Operations Manager with Andres Campuzano, one of our supervising open space technicians. This evening, we're going to be talking about the Open Space Authority's ADA transition plan that was adopted in September of 2023. This plan is a comprehensive roadmap to improve accessibility across our facilities, programs, and communications. Measure Q notably provided the financial foundation for this work and helps hold us accountable that accessibility improvements are not just aspirational, but are actionable and transparent. This slide just is a quick overview of what we're going to cover in this evening's presentation. We didn't actually time ourselves, but we hope and think that this presentation is going to be about 15 minutes and would ask you to keep your questions until the end if we can, just so it's comprehensive. So those who have been with the authority for a while may recognize this acronym of JEDIA. For those who are newer or just need a refresher, this stands for Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Accessibility, with accessibility as the primary focus of the ADA transition plan. So many of our facilities and programs have long prioritized access. Recent updates to ADA laws have prompted a deeper review and modernization of our approach. And as the authority actively works to align with updated ADA regulations, learn new best practices, and catch up with evolving standards, an important part of this transition plan is building a culture around accessibility. So what is ADA? We always love acronym soup in government work. So ADA is the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is a civil rights law that mandates equal opportunities for employees with disabilities. Just some statistics to help highlight the relevance of the ADA in our world. It isn't just a legal framework, it's a recognition of the lived reality for over 85 million Americans. More than a quarter of the population in this country are navigating physical, cognitive, or sensory challenges every day. And the ADA creates equal access to public spaces, employment, and opportunity so that people with disabilities aren't sidelined. Disability is not rare. It's part of everyone's human experience, especially as we age. People over the age of 75 are 5 times more likely to have a disability than young adults. But the truth is that most of us will experience some form of disability at some point in our lives, whether it's temporary or permanent. So the ADA helps us build environments that are inclusive, not just for today's population, but likely for our future selves as well. It's about creating spaces that support all of us at every stage in our lives and helps us enter a moment of reflection and a reminder that inclusion isn't static. And as the communities we serve grow, change, and evolve, so will our approach. So our approach a little bit. We have an ADA transition plan staff working group. Currently, there are 7 members that participate in this group, who you see up on the screen. And we span a couple of different program areas and departments. I'll call out in my role as Administrative Operations Manager, I help make sure that we are prioritizing and recommending budget that will help us implement changes in our programmatic or internal policy and training type work. Lucas Shellhammer, our Planning, Design, and Construction Manager, helps spearhead getting more physical space projects and improvements into the annual budget every year. And Lee Rauscher, our Assistant General Manager of Administrative and Field Operations, is our official ADA coordinator. She's responsible for compliance, implementation, and oversight. So she's the person to go to both for staff members, but also for the members of the public if they have questions. And there's an official email address for this, which will be available at the end of the slideshow, but it's ada@openspaceauthority.org. And the rest of the group, you
actually heard from Charlotte tonight, because communicating about ADA and accessibility, communicating in accessible ways is a big part of the transition plan. Andres and Meg are two supervising open space technicians looking at the facilities in the field, and Mel Sarmento, who is our environment educational programs administrator, who's working on creating accessible educational programming for the public. Yeah, I got everybody. So how'd we get here? Our transition work, as mentioned, started earlier in 2022 by working with consultants to conduct a self-evaluation, stakeholder outreach, and public meetings. In 2022, those consultants worked with staff to develop a draft transition plan that lists the barriers to accessibility that need to be addressed, outlines methods for correction, a timeline and budget, and helped us prioritize actions based on impact and feasibility. In 2023, the plan did go to our board of directors for review and approval. And as you can see, we are now in the ongoing phase with plan implementation, checking in on ourselves, and reporting out to bodies such as yours and the public at large. So the self-evaluation and stakeholder engagement was one of the first pieces of the process for our ADA plan. It was a survey of staff to help identify what training, resources, and practices they were aware of us having. And by surveying in that way, we helped identify in all of these types of categories the information we were lacking. Either sometimes it was that staff was lacking training. We had a process, but staff wasn't fully trained on it, or things like that. So the self-evaluation plan also, or the ADA also requires that individuals with disabilities and advocacy groups be given the opportunity to participate in the evaluation process. So we did hold a series of in-person and digital meetings throughout. And this was all, at this stage of the process, it was led by Jennifer Peth in our planning department. And it also complies with, to comply with Title II of the ADA for public agencies, and it's the first step of the process and serves as a foundational recommendation for what is included in the plan. The second component of assessing our current status was the facilities assessment. So this expert comes on site. He came to the facilities listed here, including this building and our publicly accessible facilities, and evaluated and identified physical obstacles at preserves and facilities, and then took a looked at the relative importance of addressing each barrier according to its impact upon the disabled population, its deviation from applicable standards, as well as the feasibility of mitigating for that barrier. And together, that all came up with our transition plan recommendations. So again, the physical barrier removal recommended identified physical obstacles at preserves and facilities, as well as then the programmatic recommendations included policy review, evaluation of practices that may limit access for individuals with disabilities. That's also kind of where we recognize the training that's necessary for our staff, and the public engagement, including our communications and public programs. And then from here, I'll hand it to Andres so he can talk a little bit about what we're actually doing to implement.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth.
Mhm.
So as we look to implement the work of the ADA transition plan, we focus on project readiness. Items that are relatively easy, cost-effective to achieve, or can these improvements be built into existing or planned workflows or projects? We are now in the implementation phase of the transition plan, which serves as our North Star for the working group and ADA coordinator, with ongoing accountability, tracking progress, and annual reporting to OSA staff, CAC, and our board. Excuse me. Since we began this process in 2022, we have reached some big milestones. Highlighted on the slides are some of the most recent successes. You can see they cover both preserve improvements and improvements to our website. So program leads have identified the following priorities for the upcoming year, which will be tracked and reviewed at quarterly working group meetings and reported to the board and CAC next year. They are listed here by program area, and your packet has the full list of priorities included. So now we recognize that accessibility is not a one-time fix, but an ongoing commitment. It's a mindset and it's a shared responsibility. The transition plan lays out phased approach to barrier removal and program enhancements as a beginning point for this work. Moving forward, every new project, program, and deliverable will be elevated through the lens of accessibility, whether it's trail design, signage, digital tools, or public events that we're asking who might be left out and how can we change that. In addition to plan implementation, we're excited to continue building our staff culture, education, resources, and provide more training. The ADA transitional plan isn't just a document. It's a promise to listen, to learn, and to lead with empathy so that every person, regardless of ability, can experience the beauty, peace, and connection that nature and open space provides. And with that, thank you. And you have any questions?
Any questions or comments? Andre, I just want to say thank you so much for presenting. It's great to see staff and meet new staff, or you're probably not new staff, but you're new face for us.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for that as well too. I really appreciate hearing your passions in your presentation.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you.
Any public comments? Okay, well, we will now move on to receive a presentation from our board liaison, Kathy Sutton.
Good evening, CAC, and it's wonderful to be back here and see so many happy, familiar faces. I wanted to bring a couple of things to your attention. From the last meeting that I attended with you all, where you were talking about trail connections and looking at the presentation, and I can't remember who gave that presentation. Was it you? Jen? Okay. I did bring your comments back to the board because you were concerned about camping and dogs, and then Justin, your comment about the location of the fence or something like that. So just to let you know that when I sit here, I do listen and I try and let the board know your discussions. And then I wanted to highlight one of the things we did at our last board meeting, which was one of the first. There was a resolution to for Sikh Awareness Month. And Dr. Gill, who's also a board member, was able to give a little bit of history about the Sikh movement to California and things that they're interested in. It was educational, and so deeply moving. And there were probably 15 Sikh leaders here to accept the resolution is what it was. But that was great too, because it is bringing other communities into our space. So I wanted to highlight that for you. And then let me look. Other highlights from prior board meetings. The agreement with the city of Morgan Hill to work on the El Toro Trail has been finalized. And that's a big movement, something everybody's been working on for a very long time. And then we had 2 audit presentations Monday night, and I believe the overall feeling is that it's so nice for me. It's so nice to go to an audit presentation where you can understand what's being presented, and it's clear, but it's also very, they're not going to say, auditors don't jump up and down and say, yay, yay, yay. But it was very clear. We found nothing to write about. And that was just fantastic. So that was great news. And then we also had a presentation on the GIS program. And maybe this can come to the CAC, because what I found extremely, or I don't know if you already had it, extremely interesting is how much this organization and the work that is done relies upon this. So as somebody who's really not very techy, it was very helpful. So that's all I have for tonight. Thank you all very much. Thank you all for everything you do.
Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, I did see on, I can't remember, it was Instagram or Facebook, but the CAC Awareness Month presentation was a social post. So thanks also as OSA for just promoting all the things, great things that are happening here for our community. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the general manager report. I'm going to look to Mark for that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening again, CAC members. Mark Landgraf, Assistant General Manager. I'll kick this off and then pass it around to other staff, if that's all right. So a couple of updates. One is for the Power Santa Clara project. That's the PG&E LS Power proposed project in Coyote Valley that we've been talking about in the past. LS Power was proposing to put a high voltage DC terminal adjacent to Monterey Road in Coyote Valley, where there is currently exploration for wildlife infrastructure. So we have been working for the past really 2 years with both PG&E and LS Power to see if there's a possibility to co-locate that high voltage DC terminal at the PG&E substation by Metcalf Road. And so fingers crossed, knock on wood, all that stuff. That does look like it's the direction that PG&E is going. We haven't received word of a final agreement between the parties on that, but it looks like it's definitely going that way. And they've already agreed to a joint press announcement to highlight that. I mean, it would just be such a fantastic success where we are supportive, very much so, of increasing grid reliability, energy projects in general. Just don't want to undermine the huge investment in conservation that's been made already in Coyote Valley and the types of things that our organization and many partners are trying to achieve there. So that would be just a wonderful success. So that project will be coming to a hearing at the CPUC, the California Public Utilities Commission, in January. The second update is about a battery storage proposal for also in Coyote Valley that we learned of several weeks back. And so far, our understanding is that it's a 300 megawatt facility, would consume about 40 acres, and that's being proposed for a private property south of Bailey, between Monterey and Santa Teresa Boulevard. So that's also something that, again, we're very supportive of the project because it's green energy that we very much want in California. But the site makes a huge difference. And so if it's going to be interfering with the floodplain, so the flood risk reduction that we're trying to achieve downstream, as well as wildlife connectivity, that's a problem. And so we spoke to the representatives and just were very honest about all the investment again in Coyote Valley and how we'd like to help them identify a different site for it. They've also been making the rounds with the city of San Jose. And our understanding is that their proposal is going to move forward. It's going to use the AB 205 process at the state, which is a fairly recent legislation that allows them to bypass local zoning. And so this California Energy Commission would be the decision maker on that. They would hear from local constituents and from the city of San Jose, but it's not up to the city of San Jose to decide, even though the zoning there is agriculture. So what we have been doing is working with our consultants to identify one, how much need is there for a facility at that location, given regional, statewide, and even very local battery storage needs. And also work with consultants to try and find an alternative site, just like we were doing with PG&E and LS Power. So currently involved in that process, nothing conclusive there yet, but we are
making some progress on those fronts and just wanted to let you know.
Is that the Lester property, Mark?
That is the Lester property now.
Okay.
It's a 126 acre site, 40 acres of which they would use for battery storage, and they didn't tell us what else they wanted to do with the remaining part of the property.
Thank you.
Those are my updates. Oh,
Yes, Lauren.
Lester property, that's the one adjacent to Bailey, right? Yeah, okay.
yeah,
The
it's
old
where-
Espina?
yeah, it used to be
Yeah.
Speeding Farms.
Well, okay.
Okay, I have a few updates over here, so. The first is about Spina Farms. So this October, we set up a very large static exhibit inside of a tent at Spina Farms Pumpkin Patch. And we had our volunteers, staff, and some of our CC members hosting an outreach booth on the weekends. So I had a great time at the booth with Joe and Andrea, our general manager. Lots of happy families running around with our sunglasses and stickers and tote bags, or trick or treat bags, as we call them. And of course, our brochures. We also have a new partnership with Create TV. That's a local broadcast station based in San Jose. Yeah, they're awesome. So on October 6th, we released our first YouTube premiere. It's a 30-minute video called Badger Banter, featuring 3 Badger experts, one of them sitting right next to me. It's doing extremely well on our YouTube channel. Has gotten a lot of interest, and if you missed it, you can now catch Badger Banter airing in San Jose on Comcast Channel 30 on Mondays and Wednesdays at 3:30 p.m. and on Channel 28 on Fridays at 2:30 a.m. Or you can watch it on our YouTube. So coming up, our communications team has worked with our volunteer and education team to revamp our children's activity books with some beautiful custom illustrations. We're really excited about it. We're going to be officially launching them in the new year, and they'll be available in English, Spanish, Vietnamese, and Chinese. And we're hoping to pair these we have packs of branded crayons to hopefully have available at some local libraries and community centers. But in the meantime, we're going to be dropping off a few hundred copies to one of the local children's hospitals just in time for the holidays. So we're looking forward to doing that with Director Sutherland very soon, early December. And finally, today, Jackie McBride, our community investment specialist, and I met with Federal Realty. They're the organization that operates Santana Row. We met with them this afternoon, and we're really excited to be partnering with them to facilitate a large Earth Day celebration at Santana Row. So the event itself will be on Sunday, April 19th. Mark your calendars, 2026. We're going to be activating several of the large gathering areas and having pop-up tents, family-friendly activities, tables, giveaways. It's going to be a really fun opportunity for volunteers, staff, and any of you who are interested to come out and get some face-to-face time with folks. And we're also going to be setting up a week-long static exhibit, very similar to what we had out at Spina Farms Pumpkin Patch, to help promote the event and just have a really cool photo op, help connect people in Santana Row to nature, all their thousands of visitors learning about the Open Space Authority and our work.
Through the chair, can I follow up on one item that Charlotte mentioned? So first of all, thank you, any CAC members who were at Spina Farms and helped with that outreach effort. Like Charlotte mentioned, it was really very, very successful, reached a lot of people. And thank you in advance for those of you considering going to Santana Row and working there as well. I also wanted to ask you, as we've done in the past, and we've gotten some really good suggestions, but would really love additional suggestions for groups that you think we could present to about the Open Space Authority and the work that we do. So these could be neighborhood associations, clubs, user groups, any sort of group that might have meetings that we could invite ourselves to, or you make a contact for us and we could present to them. It could be in person, it could be virtual, all sorts of different options there, but really want to continue filling out our outreach calendar with work that communications and the volunteer department are putting together for the rest of the fiscal year. So any ideas that you have, please come forward, and you can do that during a meeting, but also offline anytime. Would love to hear about those opportunities and ask for your help in making those connections. Thanks.
Oh, sorry, Edward? Thank you. I was just so enthralled in this. Thanks, Edward.
Oh, is this for committee reports now?
Oh, no, we're still on the staff report. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to mention that new tent in the booth for Spina, that is primo, really nice. After you and Joe left, I don't know, Gavin and I got bombarded with about 3 times as many people as we had 2 years ago when we were last there. So that tent is great. I hope we use that more often. Really nice.
Oh, Frank.
Mark. Yeah. Director Mike Barr used to do an update basically most of the time at the various Citizen Advisory Council. Can we start doing that again, or you guys would got a presentation for that organization? They usually meet the second Monday of the month.
Yeah, so we last presented to them in June, and we did have, I believe Andrea and Margie Matthews, Director Matthews, presented to them. We've been doing it on an annual basis, but we could go back to them.
It's up to you. I just, I was not there in June, so I didn't see the presentation, but that will be, just want to put it back on the calendar if it's possible to do it again.
Yeah.
If it's possible.
Absolutely, that's a great idea. That's a great example of the kind of group that we want to be speaking
Because
to.
I remember that, Mike used to do on a regular basis, give a quick update, but one presentation will be excellent to remind the people, in their area.
Yeah, great one. Thank you.
All right, looking around. All right, oh, Lonnie. No, it's new, sorry, okay.
Okay, those are all very exciting things to hear about, first of all, super awesome. I wanted to ask about the booth at Cedar Farms. Were there any quantitative objectives for the booth? Was there anything that we're trying to measure in terms of whether you were catching names or adding them to a list, or just if we passed out everything, or what was translated into success, I guess, the recap. Through the chair. Yeah, definitely we're keeping track of the quantities of things that we were passing out. So every weekend there were a certain number of sunglasses, a certain number of tote bags, brochures, things like that, keeping track of how many we were refilling. So that was a kind of a good measurement for us. In terms of the goals, I mean, Spina Farms has gotten wildly popular over the years. And so engaging with as many people as we could in the amount of time that we were there, and making sure that folks were, leaving with a really positive impression of the Open Space Authority, and hopefully taking one of our giveaways that had our logo on it. And we were finding that with the static exhibit there, just during the week when we didn't have staff there, we were having to refill the brochure holder. So that was a really neat thing for us to look at as well. We found that the multilingual wildlife safety brochures that we had out there were having to be restocked quite often. So it was interesting to see which languages we were having to restock, as well as the zigzag brochures that I mentioned earlier. We were having to restock those pretty much every day of the weekend and throughout the week. So, sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, no, I didn't know that.
You're good.
Yeah, and to your question, Lonnie, I think if we do compile numbers internally, at some point we could provide an update to the CAC with some of that information if you're interested in the actual numbers.
Yeah, that would be great. I was wondering if there's any translation from the attendees of Smino Farms to, or wanting to get them to the website, or if there was a goal for that, or it was physically just giving them materials, or what goals were there, just because I know every booth is different and there's different goals for running a booth, so I wasn't sure what the goals were. But I think it's very exciting that all the stuff was leaving, but also Smino Farms is Smino Farms, and kids are gonna say yay to free things whenever they can, so obviously having goals for a booth moving forward, I think having some sort of translation from the physical location to the digital space is really important back to the physical locations, right? So I would definitely say if those booths continue, I would love to see that as a process. The second thing I had was for Create TV. First of all, I hope it's kind of like, I want like more, does anyone remember Meerkat Manor? Anyway, that's what I thought when you said Badger. I'm like, that would be really fun. But I know a person who actually runs a show at Create TV called SB Tags, and it focuses around sustainability within Silicon Valley. It's been around for a really long time. Heather Durham. So if you want it, since you're doing a show there, she's been really popular and successful and talks to a lot of different groups and individuals. So it would be nice to maybe connect you guys and see about getting you guys on there. That was it.
All right, Aaron, I think it's your turn now. Thank you.
Just a few updates. The Santa Clara County Farm Bureau is having a Christmas party down in Gilroy on December 2nd. If you are interested in going, we have a few tickets. Please let Caroline know ASAP, I think by the 19th, so next couple of days. Again, December 2nd in Gilroy, hosted by the Farm Bureau. There is a white elephant. I don't know if that's an inducement or not, but part of the party there. I mentioned earlier in regards to the agricultural strategic plan that on October 29th, we had that stakeholder meeting with our outside partners. Actually, that same day in the afternoon, we continued with many of the same group to talk about some of our planning in Coyote Valley. We have about, say half a dozen properties in there that are row crop production, some of which are currently not leased that we're planning for. So we got a lot of good input about our agricultural planning in Coyote Valley. This will be folded into some broader planning that we're doing in Coyote Valley for wildlife, for public access, for agriculture, some of those other goals. All that planning that's going on with the CV camp, as we call it, 3 alternatives are going to be taken to the board of directors in late January for their consideration. And it's not necessarily A, B, or C. They're not going to be selecting one. You can kind of mix and match among them as you like. A similar presentation will come to the CAC kind of around that time frame. We haven't exactly scheduled it, kind of, February, March, maybe sometime in January, depending on how things go. So look forward to that. I'll just say one highlight, and Justin can speak to this too, of the agricultural planning for Coyote Valley was, a real interest, I think, more so than I've heard in the past, in educating the youth about agriculture, both like 4-H type programs, as well as just, urban kids who might not have touched as much dirt, just all levels. So I don't know how that'll land in the physical space and the planning that we're doing for Coyote Valley, but really interesting. One other thing I'll mention is that the Open Space Authority, in partnership with the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District through the Santa Cruz Mountain Stewardship Network, is planning a first inaugural Science and Stewardship Symposium. So that's the intersection of science and stewardship in the Santa Cruz Mountains. This will be held in Santa Cruz on January 30th. We've got some awesome keynote speakers like Dr. Jen Norris from the Wildlife Conservation Board, the Amamutsan Land Trust, the Mark Maloney Preservation Foundation, some really great organizations that will be participating in there. So I'm really happy to be on the organizing committee for that. Hopefully another good opportunity for us to get our brand out there, at least with kind of the practitioner and kind of science crowd. So I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Yes. Elizabeth.
For staff, if
Oh, okay.
How's that?
Just want to make sure there are no comments.
I can comment briefly on.
Yes,
follow up on
yeah.
that.
Yeah, that was a fun meeting. I was a little skeptical. I always get kind of skeptical when I get to a meeting and there's tables set up with papers and big paper and ink pens, and I'm like, oh gosh, we're gonna break out groups. Boy, you know, but it was very, very well taken. I think everybody had a good opportunity to voice concerns, give ideas, and yes, youth and education was a common thread amongst all of the groups that were there. 4-H and FFA, both those are really, even though our fair itself isn't thriving, but those groups are really doing well, especially FFA at the high school level. It's the largest it's the largest youth-run organization in the nation. And they're the largest clubs, I think, on campus at both Live Oak and Sobrato high schools. The largest, they've got like 400 to 500 members at each school. And interesting story, one of the members went to school with my oldest daughter. He was a year ahead of her. Chapter president. He came from, his dad was a bus driver, still is, I'm assuming, but a county bus driver. So no background in agriculture at all, got into it, both feet, and went on, he got a scholarship to Harvard. Did really well in high school, lots of scholarships. And recently, I think it was last month, was on Jeopardy. And, you know, after the first commercial break, they come back and everybody talk to each contestant a little bit about themselves. And he spoke about FFA, about what he did in FFA. That was what he talked about. All the things he could have talked about, going to Harvard, and I think he went to several other Ivy League schools as well, but he talked about FFA. So it's a very good program that reaches out to a lot of kids who don't have that background and teaches them a lot, whether they go into agriculture or not. It gives them a good foundation of where their food comes from. So any way OSA can help with those programs is worthwhile. So, well done.
Yes, and then Edward.
Aaron just jogged my memory about Coyote Valley. I noticed a few weeks ago when I was down there that all those walnut orchards down there at Palm and on all four corners of Palm and Santa Teresa been stripped out except for the front rows. Is that recent, or do we know anything about that, or does anybody have any information about that? I don't think those are any of our properties, so.
Through the chair, Peninsula Open Space Trust acquired those properties, I want to say in 2020 or something thereabouts. And then we've been managing them since then. For the last, maybe since about 2 years ago, I want to say, there was a tenant who managed the walnut orchard there. And a couple things happened. Really high groundwater basically drowned the trees from below. And then I think, walnut prices, walnut's a very long-term investment, as you can imagine. I think they started at $2.50 a pound when you put them in, and then they were down to about 50 cents, 75 cents a dollar. So just the return on investment for maintaining. So he basically walked off the project. And at that point, OSA stacked and pile burned all the trees, like the Andres and crew. We left the row trees on there as kind of an aesthetic buffer, but there are 4 parcels next to it that are really at the heart of some of our agricultural planning and CB camp. Obviously not trees suitable for that site, but we hope to activate those in the next couple of years with some kind of agriculture.
Great. When did they strip all those trees out? Did I just notice 3 weeks ago that they did it 5 years
Yeah,
ago?
I think that 2 years ago.
Oh, really?
Sorry to say.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Elizabeth Lorado is administrative operations manager. I know my title. Just a few calendaring notes for you all, as we approach the end of the year and the beginning of the new year. In addition to the thrilling Farm Bureau holiday gathering, there are 2 holiday kind of celebration opportunities with the Open Space Authority. Thursday, December 4th, the staff wants to invite you as well as the board to our end of year luncheon. Also, a very competitive white elephant game gets played there. And so that's about, I think we're 11:30, but Caroline will include details in her recap email. And then on the December 11th board meeting, just before the meeting, there will be a little light holiday reception that the board would also be happy to see any of you all at. So that's the 4th or the 11th are those 2 opportunities. This is the last meeting of the year, so the big expectation is come have fun with us in December. And then in January, when we come back, we'll hold committee officer elections and kick off a whole new year. Lots of big things happening. That's really.
All right, are there any comments? If there are no comments, I want to thank, actually just kidding, we still have the committee member reports and committee reports. Yes, Raj.
Good evening. Last month, October month was a Hindu Heritage Month. It's a good news. State of California declared Diwali as a state holiday starting 2026. And our governor signed the bill, AB 268 bill was signed. It is an official holiday starting from next year. Diwali is an official holiday. And city of San Jose, city of Santa Clara, city of Sunnyvale, city of Milpitas, city of Fremont, city of Dublin, San Ramon, and if I miss any city, I don't know. They recognize Diwali as a Hindu part of a Hindu Heritage Month. And they recognize all the Indian organizations in the city halls. And I want to say, because we have a big Diwali festival in Alameda County Fairground in Clinton. Last year, I think Kathy was there also in that. Around 30,000 people attended that festival. And the same day, our governor signed Diwali as a whole state holiday. And he sent us a special message. As you are celebrating Diwali, I'm signing Diwali permanently for the state of California. And it was very great news for Indian community. And I want to say thank you, everyone, to make us more happy because of Diwali. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to celebrate the various cultures that make up this beautiful tapestry of Santa Clara County. And really excited that now this holiday will be recognized on a more formal basis. So thank you so much for sharing that.
One more, actually, Google also announced, Google and Adobe and Microsoft. They also celebrated Diwali and they invited us to be part of their, and we actually, city of San Jose also have a special program for Diwali in downtown San Jose. Our mayor, Chamber of Commerce, Silicon Valley Chamber of Commerce, all was the part of that event. And it was very good event attended by so many elected officials from Silicon Valley. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other committee member reports? I'll just say very quickly, the social post I was referring to about the Open Space Authority property was Rancho Cañada del Oro, and they had 65 people on the all access trail for breast cancer awareness hike. So just wanted to give a shout out again to OSA, Open Space Authority, No Worries Amigo, and the community that all participated in that event too. So I think that's really great to have so many people out on that trail supporting a wonderful cause. All right, are there any subcommittee reports? Okay, well, then by the power vested in me, I declare this meeting over.